Hello, welcome to the January 4th, 2021 meeting of the Symmes Township Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. First up, we do Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to stand, we can stare at Darcy's flag, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Luann, I will let you do the roll call.
Mr. Fowler?
Here.
Ms. Harlow?
Here.
Mr. Havel?
Here.
Mr. Horvath? Mr. Wolf?
Okay, guys. For those who are here for appeals, if you can give us a couple of minutes, it's the first meeting of the year, so we need to do an election of officers. Byron and Darcy, I believe you two are up, but Mr. Horvath and Mr. Wolf aren't here, so if you guys want to nominate them and second them in, I wouldn't complain.
Well, let's
Byron,
just put
have you
it
done
off
that
till
before?
next time.
Has Byron done?
No, I haven't.
Byron, you're in.
No, I haven't. I was going to say, let's just defer it till next meeting when everybody can vote.
We could, I don't know, can we do that, Brian? Because we do have a meeting in February.
I mean, it's on the agenda for election of officers. You should probably do it now. This is the annual meeting.
Well, I nominate Byron then.
I second that. Let's be done.
Oh.
What about for vice chair?
I'll nominate Darcy.
I second that.
Hi, Jack.
Hello.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've had all kinds of trouble getting in this evening, but I'm finally in, I think.
We can hear you.
Okay, good.
Do we have to do a roll call on that, Brian?
Well, they were just nominated. Somebody needs to make a motion to elect the nominee.
I move to elect Byron and Darcy to the open position.
I second that.
Okay, Mr. Fowler?
Aye.
Ms. Harlow?
Aye.
Mr. Havel?
Yes.
Mr. Horvath?
Agree. It's unanimous.
Okay.
Hooray. That doesn't happen often.
This will take effect next month when I get the cheat sheets.
You can if you want, yes.
Okay.
Okay. No worries. So our next item for tonight will be the approval of the agenda. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. For the participants who are going to be speaking tonight, if you can raise your right hand, this is being recorded. Know that any testimony that you give, you are swearing to that testimony, whether through affirmation or putting your hand on the Bible, however you want to swear yourself in, you'll be considered sworn in to be telling the truth and the whole truth.
Yes.
Okay. And then we will hear appeals. Our first case is BZA 2020-13. Brian, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right. Brian Snyder with Hamilton County Planning and Development. I prepared the staff reports that you should have received for these three cases. The first is case 2020-13 for 9247 Cactus Lane. see if I can share my screen and get the right one, 13. All right, so this is the vicinity map from the staff report. Here's Cactus Lane. You can see East Kemper is off to the west. This is the house here, and surrounded on all sides by single-family houses, single-family zoning. The subject of the request is located here, and what they're asking for is a variance for approval of a pool located in the side yard. So you can see the house here, and just some brief history. This house was, I believe, destroyed by fire several years ago and reconstructed. Prior to that, there was a garage here and there was a house here, but the garage and the house were not connected substantially. I believe there was a little breezeway. When they reconstructed it, they actually they connected the two substantially. This is all part of the main structure now. So the rear yard used to start at the rear line of the house, and now it starts at the rear line of the garage because it is all part of one big structure now. So this area here is now considered the side yard. A little bit more history. This property is also the subject of a variance that was granted for, I believe, an 8-foot privacy fence along the side yard here several years ago. So I've got some pictures of the property as well from the staff report. You should have copies of these in the staff report. This is the garage here and the house here. And this would be Cactus Lane running along here, and the private drive that's shared by several houses is here. This is in the area of the privacy fence that was granted previously. This is the neighboring house on Cactus. This picture was taken from Cactus Lane. I'm kind of just looking at the side of the house. Again, another view of the side of the house from the street. I believe we have a picture of the actual area where the pool would go. Since it was, we'd have to go down somebody's driveway to get a picture of that. But from this aerial view, you can see where the side yard is on the opposite side of the garage from the previous photo. So the pool would be here, which is behind the house, but next to the garage. So it's in the side yard, and that's the reason for the variance request. It meets the setback. The pool would meet the setback requirements. It would be surrounded by fencing as required. And there are no other issues except for the fact that it is technically considered to be in the side yard. So that's all I have. This is a variance that would be based on practical difficulties. Is not a use variance or unnecessary hardship, and the factors for practical difficulties are on the end of page 2 of the staff report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
What's the definition of a side yard?
I don't have the code with me to read you the actual definition of side yard. The side yard, though, we define as the area between the front corner of the house and the rear corner of the house, extended out to the property line.
So based on this picture here, do they even have a backyard?
Yeah, it starts right here at this corner, and it would be all this area here. Everything behind the garage is their backyard.
So what portion of the pool is in the backyard and what portion of the pool is in the front yard?
I
Or
believe
the side yard?
I believe the vast majority of it is in the side yard, almost all of it. I think the staff report does point out that they could move the pool past the rear corner of the line. There is enough flat area here, and they would have to take out the play set, but it would fit back there without the need for a variance.
And practically speaking, if the right side is at 8 foot, and I mean, technically I understand, but practically, what difference does it make if it's in that, what we call the side yard versus moving it 10 feet further down and putting it all in the backyard?
Well, it's the way the code reads. I believe the staff report also points out that moving it further back would actually put it closer to this person's house. And because of the privacy fence that was previously granted and some of the woods that are on the property line, locating it here would have very limited impact on the neighboring property here.
So what I'm trying to understand the issue is what is practical and in the best interest of the neighbors potentially versus the letter of the law. Is that one way to look at it?
Well, they're asking you to vary the letter of the law to allow them to put the pool where they want the pool to go, and it's the board's duty to look at the factors and decide whether to grant it or not.
Brian, I've got a couple of questions too.
Sure.
First, let's talk about the side lot setback. Isn't that 10 feet? And you said that's not an issue here. They will be set back at least 10 feet from the sideline.
So swimming pools are required to be both by the building code actually, and the zoning code was written to match the building code. Swimming pools are required to be from the edge of the water 10 feet from all property lines.
Okay. And this will satisfy that and satisfy the township code setback.
For the setback, yes, correct.
Okay. The privacy fence between us and this house and the adjacent neighbor, that's 8 feet tall already?
I believe so. Yes, it was granted. Variance was granted for an extra 2 feet of height on that fence in 2013 when the house was rebuilt.
And by privacy, it pretty much totally blocks any view through the fence, correct?
Yeah, it's a 100% privacy fence, yes.
Okay. Is there a privacy fence on the back lot line as well and on the left lot line? Does that privacy fence go all the way around or not?
I'm not certain.
It doesn't look like.
I believe it's a split, a Kentucky board fence or something like that, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, if you look at that picture you're showing now, it looks like a split rail that you can see through, and also that it's not even 8 feet tall.
Right, no, that one probably is 4 feet and split rail or Kentucky board style, right?
Now, you said that the lock requires fencing around the pool. Is that in addition to the privacy fence that we have between the two lots and the existing split rail?
The building code requires you to have fencing around a pool so neighbors can't wander in and drown in the pool. I believe if your yard is enclosed with any kind of fence, but I think it has to be a minimum of 48 inches tall, so 4 feet. So what they've got, I believe, if it comes all the way around, would be sufficient. They're not asking for a variance for any additional fencing though, so.
Okay, I'm a little bit lost. Are you saying you think that they already comply with the pool fencing requirement?
I believe so. It looks like they have, on the plans that they submitted, there's a 48-inch 3-board with wire fence with self-latching gates, which I believe is the requirement.
So the only protection for line of sight view for the neighbors is for the adjacent neighbor, the neighbor across the driveway, not Cactus, but the driveway behind the house has full view of the pool, right?
Yes, they would.
And has the applicant submitted any statements of approval or comments of these two particular neighbors?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. Well, we can ask them about that.
Brian, I've got a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go right ahead, Darcy.
I've got a question. If that breezeway was not enclosed, you had a breezeway and then the garage, would we have a variance issue?
It depends on the level of connection between the roof of the structures. We've had people substantially, like the roof that's there is integrated into the house and the roof of the garage. We would consider it still to be attached even if it wasn't enclosed. just because it's substantially attached by the roof structure. Previously, they had a very minimal breezeway connection between the garage and the house, which didn't amount to a substantial connection.
Understand.
So if that were in place, if they had built it back exactly as it was prior to 2013, there would not be a need for a variance.
Okay.
Just one more question on that. What is the extent of the actual physical variance here? What would they do to the pool to be in full compliance without needing a variance?
I'm gonna guess.
I think
they would have to move
I'm going to the question that Jack was asking. Can he move it farther back in the lot and not create a variance need?
Yes, they could. I believe the pool would have to move 15 to 20 feet further to the south. But yes, it would be able to fit between the corner of the garage and the rear property line in this area, yes.
Okay.
Okay, are we done with questions for Brian at the moment?
Yes.
All right, Brian, as always, we reserve the right to bring you back because we'll have those questions. So we've heard the staff report from Symmes Township. If there's anybody to speak on behalf of this appeal, if you could raise your hand on the screen, and I think Brian or Rob will be able to let you speak then so that we can hear. Again, this is if you are for this appeal.
Okay, so then I believe you can unmute yourselves. I don't think we have to unmute you.
Okay.
Right.
Hi, I'm Jim with Aquarian Pools and Spas. I obviously am working with the customer, the Jason and Lee. In regard to the question about the view of the homeowner, the 8-foot privacy fence goes down the side lot between the house on full on the frontage of Cactus partially, and then you can see from the one picture in the staff report that there is a Kentucky board fence around the rear portion of the yard, what we would term here as the rear yard. That at that point opens up that area as much more viewing to that homeowner who is in the rear of their lot and has the driveway that comes right up against that. So inevitably, keeping the pool in the area that we proposed does offer more privacy from the home on Cactus and the home in the rear because we're moving away from that space. And I'm sure the homeowners can add to that comment as well in the respect of what view those homeowners have, because I'm sure they've looked at it from that view as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. This is Lee. Our neighbors are able to, in our little private drive, come out from their driveways or from their front doors, and they can actually have a sight line all the way down Cactus Lane from the drive through our backyard. The only thing that's located in that south corner against our neighbor's driveway is currently a swing set, which if we need to move the pool back into that area, obviously we would have to get rid of, because there is a section code that would prevent us from moving the swing set into that side yard. And so that's another reason that, we would like to keep it in the proposed location. The other reason we'd like to keep it in that proposed location is for that privacy. For us enjoying the pool, but then also our neighbors not having to look at us in the pool. For safety reasons, both the house and garage and that partial privacy fence would basically shield the majority of that pool from our neighbors, both from Cactus Lane and from the side driveway. We're also looking at getting a automatic hardcover for the pool, so that we've got control of when it's opened and closed, to aid in those security measures. Another thing we're looking at doing is installing video cameras in the rear yard. Having the pool a little bit closer to the house is going to provide that sight line for those cameras, to add, to that security. And we just feel that that location is best for our family also. We've got, small children, so we want to also have easy access to the pool, especially in the case of an emergency. And we don't want to have any type of attractive item in the view of neighbors as they come up and down the street. And aesthetically, I think it's just going to be a little bit more pleasing, once we're able to get the pool installed and landscape, to have that up closer to the house. Mm-hmm.
And just before you go any further, can you identify yourself for the record, your name?
Yes, Lee Winters Gibson.
Thank you.
Did either of you guys or Mr. Burkhart want to say anything more on behalf for your variance request?
Other than, we don't have any written agreement with the neighbors. Our neighbors are aware of our intentions. They have not posed any concerns with it. They don't see any obstacles with having a pool in the yard. I do know that the previous owners were considering putting a pool in. Obviously never went as far as requesting a permit, or else we probably would have known this information when we bought the house. But again, I don't think that there's any opposition from the neighbors to what we're requesting.
I would just like to add psychological, obviously
So, Mr. Gibson, I'm assuming, I don't know if you are not centered with the computer, or we're not picking you up, like, at all.
Sorry, Aaron Gibson.
What was your name? Sorry.
Aaron Gibson. From a psychological standpoint, we're in this for the long haul, for the spring and the summer, for the COVID-19 pandemic. We're planning on obviously being hunkered down for the spring and summer. So we would like some type of, more at-home engagement for our family and our kids during the pandemic. So, that was the reason we were planning on getting a pool, and it's been put off and put off. So we were hoping possibly get this started maybe in the spring. So that's where we're at with this right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who wants to speak for this appeal? Please speak up. I'm not seeing anyone. I'm going to move right on ahead. Is there anyone here to speak against this appeal? Again, I'm not seeing anything or hearing anyone speak up. So at this point, the board is going to discuss what we think. Does anybody have any more questions for Brian Snyder from the board?
I don't, but I'd like to ask the Gibsons a question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Please.
Do you have any plans for the lot directly behind you? You'd have your pool, landscaping to screen the view from their property.
There's a swing set there now, and there's probably, I think there's 7 feet between the property line, the fence, and the swing set. So we may have the ability to put some maybe narrow, rocket junipers or something to, aid in blocking from that point. Up closer to the pool, we are going to have pavers around it. So most likely we'll have landscaping up closer towards the pool rather than on that fence line. But there is intent to landscape around the fencing.
To obstruct the view from the neighbor's house.
Right.
If I could add, if we are granted the variance, the view from the neighbor's house will be greatly reduced. If we are not granted the variance and we have to push the pool back into that space, their view will be highly impacted if we have to go back that far, just because we're going to be, we would then be roughly 10 feet from their fence line, as opposed to, I believe, looking at the plans right now, we're about 40. So their view is greatly less, it's greatly reduced if we are able to keep the pool in the proposed area.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the Gibsons or Mr. Burkhart? Okay, I don't hear anything. So at this time, we will discuss among ourselves. Byron, you're the first one I see. I feel like you're getting picked on tonight, but I'm still going to go with you first.
I'd love to defer.
Okay.
But the concerns I have are primarily safety and neighbor's view. And safety comes first. I like the idea, although I don't like the idea of telling homeowners what to do with their property or how to spend more money. But I do like the idea of a hard cover for the pool for safety reasons, as well as something to obstruct the view of the pool so that it becomes less of an attractive nuisance. I mean, that is the absolute nature of outdoor swimming pools in residential areas, is that they are, as a legal matter, an attractive nuisance. And I think those split rail fences that are only 3 or 4 feet high won't impede a 12-year-old. So I'm a little concerned about that. And in our discussion, I'd like us to consider whether or not some additional barriers, whether it's screening by plants, trees that would obstruct the view of the pool unless it make it less an attractive nuisance, or something about the fencing to make it a little less inviting for kids to go, oh, gee, look at that pool, let's jump in. And whether or not we even entertain telling them whether or not to have a hard cover, that's a little riskier, or I think a little more intrusive on our part, but it's something to think about. Those are my comments.
Okay. Darcy, I'm just going down the line.
That's fine. It's, this was kind of an engineered violation because originally it was okay before the garage was really attached, and then after that happened, it becomes a problem. But who can foresee that? So my only thing is I think that I like Byron's idea of maybe some plant screening of some kind, and as long as the pool, I guess, is in the backyard as it originally was, it seems like it's the best location from all the discussions and what I've heard.
Okay. Jack?
Okay. So as I understand it, the issue really boils down to, do we allow the variance and let the pool be closer to the house? Or do we deny the variance and push it closer to the back boundary line so that it's in the definition of a backyard? Those are the only two things we have to decide. Really, it's only one. And where I'm at is I'm in favor of granting the variance. And the reason is I think that given the unusual construct of that backyard, it's not your typical plot house layout, garage layout, where you can clearly define side yard, backyard, front yard. and and so for me, moving it closer to the house does a couple of things. Number one, it gives better supervision from the house when we talk about safety. Okay. I think these people are very responsible with the items that they're planning to include. Second of all, from the neighbors on the right side, as we're looking at the plot plan, you've got an 8-foot fence. And I think from the standpoint of it being closer to the house, it's further from the backyard line, which is then the neighbor in behind. And so for me, I think for the neighbors, it's a win-win. I feel bad giving variances. We don't hand out variances like lollipops because they're important things. But I think the confines of how this yard is laid out in the house and the breezeway and everything, it's very unusual. Okay. And if it was a normal layout as we typically see in these meetings and in these proposals, I would be a lot less willing to grant a variance at all. And but that's where I am. I would grant the variance.
Okay. Thank you. Ralph, I'm not sure exactly when you came in and whether or not you are wanting to be part of this conversation or if we're allowed to have you be part of this conversation. And Ralph, you're on mute.
There we go. I came in a little late, and I'm gonna back off from this meeting, this part of it.
Okay.
But there are rules of fence heights for swimming pools, how they get arranged. But the fence height, there is a code rule for a fence around the pool. So telling them they have to have a fence taller than what the code allows, I don't think we have that ability to say that. So I just wanted to put that 2 cents out there for everybody. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I also am in agreement that this is an odd situation with how the house was versus how the house and the garage are now, and that it is certainly a better situation for the neighbors, for all the neighbors to have it in that one location. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the appeal for BZA 2020-13 variance request as written. Does anyone want to second that?
I will second that.
Okay. Luann,
Oh,
can we vote?
okay. Mr. Havel,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
I'm gonna abstain.
okay. Mr. Fowler,
Yes.
Ms. Harlow.
Yes. Congratulations, your variance has been granted.
Thank
We
you.
are,
Much.
we're going to now move to BZA case 2020-14, which is also a variance request for 9976 Washington Avenue. And I'm going to turn this over to Brian Snyder to give us the staff report.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen again for this case, which is now number 14. Okay, so this is a variance request, case 2020-14. It's located 9976 Washington Avenue, which is here. This is in the Twi area of Symmes Township. The city map isn't very zoomed out, so you'll get a good idea of exactly where it is if you're not familiar. But I believe that this is Kemper Road to the south, and to the north would be Lebanon Road, where Lebanon comes off of, is that Glendale Milford? Or I have them backwards. I apologize. I don't have the large scale vicinity map. The Totes Factory, if you're familiar with where that is just off the screen to the right, the old Totes Factory. Anyway, this is the property here. It's outlined in red. It's two separate lots. The request is for a variance to allow construction of an uncovered wooden porch addition with less front yard setback onto the front of the house here. The applicant realizes that the property needs to be consolidated so they don't have a property line running through the porch that they're talking about building, which would be a zoning and building code violation. So there's the applicant has indicated that they will be getting the properties consolidated into one lot. So the only request is to have the front porch be located closer to Washington Avenue than required. Excuse me. I do have some pictures. This is surrounded by single family houses. This is the lot here, or the house here. You can see they have some stairs coming down the front. They're talking about building an 8-foot by 12-foot uncovered wooden porch in the front yard in front of the house. You can see the houses on both sides, and then another view of the front of the house. From this, you can kind of see a lot of the houses in this area have this kind of corner cutout front porch, which in a lot of cases, not just this one, have been enclosed to finished interior spaces, while there's no front porch on this property currently, with the exception of the stoop and these steps. And then that's all the photos that I have of this property. Driving around some of the other properties, there's a lot of other places where front porches have been enclosed, front porches have been added or extended. None of the houses in this area meet the required front yard setback of 30 feet. The front yard setback required for this house, because of a section in the code that allows you to consider the average alignment of the houses on either side for the purposes of determining your front yard setback. So if you have two houses really close to the street, we don't make you set this house 50 feet back from the road. You can take the two setbacks on either side and average them, and that becomes your required front yard setback. And in this case, averaging this house and this house, the required front yard setback is 13.75 feet. So that's, it's currently about 15 feet from the front right-of-way line of Washington Avenue. And you can see there is a little bit of grass between the right-of-way and the road here as well. But essentially, with extending the deck out 8 feet from the front of the house, they're requesting a 6.25, a 6 1/4 foot front yard setback variance to allow the porch to be located in the front. You, I believe, do have a copy of the plans in your packets that were emailed to you, hopefully, with all the information that was submitted. There's some kind of scratch handiwork of ours, my staff's, in determining the front yard setback with all of the handwritten kind of notes on it. I'm not sure if you have a copy of that or not. There's a sheet of specs for the deck. Basically, it's a wooden deck that's not covered. And then at some point, there is an actual kind of site plan, looks something like this, that indicates the front yard setback. So it's not very much to scale, but you kind of get the point of looking at this and then looking at the photos of the front of the house. 8 feet would come off the front, and it would be 12 feet wide, which would be not as wide as the house, I believe. So just a basic front deck. So that is all the information that was submitted. Staff found that a number of other places in this community don't meet the front yard setback. There are several houses that are very close to the street. There were several other variances granted for decks extending closer to property lines and other types of setbacks that you use, or variances that you usually associate with having houses on small lots like this. This neighborhood, you can see from this is typical of a larger area of 3 or 4 more blocks of this, where you've got 25-foot wide lots or less, and generally very small properties with houses that, for the most part, don't meet any of the required setbacks except for maybe the rear yard. So the deck would still be several feet away from the road, from the right-of-way, which would put it several feet more away from the actual edge of the pavement. It would be 7.5 feet from the right of way, plus the, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet of grass that's between the right of way line and the actual pavement of Washington Avenue. But that is all I have. This is another variance based on practical difficulties and not a use variance, and the standards for practical difficulties are on page 3 of the staff report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Ryan, I have a quick one. The house using this overhead view, the house immediately to the left of it looks to be closer to the street than the subject house.
It is correct.
Do you know how much closer?
I do. It's on that paperwork that had our my plans examiner some notes on it. Appears to be 9.5 feet from the right-of-way line.
And what will our subject be if the variance is granted? You said 7?
7.5.
So it's really only 2.5 feet closer, or 1.5 feet closer.
2 feet, exactly 2 feet closer.
Okay. Thank you.
If I didn't mention it, they're 27 inches. The deck would be 27 inches off of the grade, so 27 inches up. A little bit over 2 feet raised off the ground.
So then what you have is you have the 2 feet plus you have the roughly 5 feet of easement. So you're really talking the deck would be about, what, 7 feet away from the road? And the house next door is 9.5 feet. Is that how we look at it, or we got the numbers wrong?
Well, I mean, the other house is from the front wall of the house to the right of way is 9.5 feet. So it's got a 9.5 foot front yard setback right now. This house has about a 15-foot setback from the right of way. And they would be extending the deck to about 7.5 feet from the right of way.
But then from that point at the end of the right of way, 7.5 feet, you still have another 5 feet before you get to the edge of the road.
Correct. It looks like there's, like a little bit of gravel where people park on the side of the road.
Okay, so it's like roughly 12, 13 feet, the end of the porch to the actual concrete roadway.
Yes, probably.
Which is important because I didn't pick that up when I read through the staff report, that whole easement thing, when it kept saying, I thought it was going to be like right up against the 7 feet from the road. I was going to be like, no. Okay.
Well, these cars are probably, 7 to 8 feet wide. So that's probably the additional distance, probably about 14, 15 feet away from the actual edge of the road.
And the staircase right now, that's what about from the house to the edge of the staircase currently is what about maybe 4 feet, 4.5 feet, just for perspective.
Something like that, right?
Each tread is about 11 inches, should be.
Okay, so if we take that and we just project in our minds another length of the staircase, that's about where the deck would come out.
Yeah, probably here behind this tree for sure. So.
All right.
Well, isn't the deck going to replace the steps or be abutting the house?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think he was meant just for visual, like this is currently.
Yeah, just if that's 4 feet, you add another 4 feet, you get the perspective of what 8 feet from the house would be.
Right.
And when you look at the house on the left, never mind the front of that house is a couple of feet closer than the front of this house. Its steps come even closer to the road.
Right, yes.
And that retained rock wall with the fountain or whatever goes out pretty far too.
And Byron, if you look at Brian's overhead, look at the house about 4 houses down on the left side. You'll see there's something like right here, right by where it says SYM, whatever that is, goes like almost to the easement. I don't know if that's a structure or concrete pathway or.
Right.
Ryan, while we have you up here, in their appeal, they're actually building a deck off the rear of this house too. And that creates nothing. We don't need a variance for any of those issues.
No, it would meet the rear yard.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for Brian right now? Okay.
Not me.
All right. Then if you are here to speak for this appeal, which is 2020-14, please unmute yourself, state your name and address, and just affirm that you understand that you are sworn in.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name's Scott Schlotterbeck, and I'm the owner of 9978 Washington Avenue. I put in for the variance change there to add a very simple low profile platform deck there, detached from the house. It is 12 foot wide, and it comes out almost 8 foot. It's about 7 foot 11. And even with that all the way out, the house to the left, front exterior wall, still extends past where my deck would be. I know you guys went over some numbers a minute ago, and we talked about different measurements to the street itself. With my deck in place, that house still comes out further than my deck would. I think about a foot and a half. And I actually went down and looked at it and measured it from where the deck would stop at. I have to the roadway itself to where the blacktop is roughly about 15 foot of front, a combined yardage and a gravel parking area. All those houses, a lot of the houses have a gravel parking area in the front of it, as you can see in your one picture to the right where the cars park. So if you add that, which is, I don't know, 6 or 7 feet, and then the grass that I would still have is another 10 feet at least. I mean, I have plenty of yard and setback from the main street itself. So yeah, it's very small it's a very small deck, and it's detached, if that helps.
Just to clarify that, you're walking out the front door onto the deck, right?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, it's considered attached for the purposes of zoning. Not, you might be constructing it as a freestanding deck, but if you're walking out of the house onto it, it's part of the main structure. That's why it needs a variance.
Yeah, that's what I've learned here the hard way. Because so yeah, that's why
if we didn't consider it attached, it would be a detached accessory structure, and you only be allowed to have it in the rear yard. You wouldn't even be allowed to have one of those.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, just so we're clear, if you walk out the front door onto it, it's part of the main structure, and that's the purpose of the variance. That's why we're here.
Yes. And the steps of that deck would come off the left side of the deck towards the driveway. It wouldn't protrude any further out towards the street. So you have like 2 or 3 steps down, whatever that might be, right to the driveway. And part of one of the main things that came about is, I don't know what it is with the yard around there, but we've had it treated several times since we purchased it, my son and I. There's like chiggers or bugs, or you get eaten alive in that yard. So we said, well, we need something off the ground if you're gonna sit out there or whatever. And that was the reason we put it on there. Want to put it on there, so that would certainly help out.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Schlotterbeck?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you. Does anyone on the board have questions for Mr. Schlotterbeck or for Brian?
No, he answered my questions real quickly.
Okay.
From Brian and I, we're going to ask the same questions about detached. So.
Okay, then we will go into discussions. And
do we have anyone talking against?
Oh, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak against this BZA Appeal 2020-14? Okay, I don't hear anyone, nor do I see anyone. So we'll close it. We'll go into discussion. Darcy, I'm going to start with you.
Hey. I'm pretty much for the variance. There's really no consistency in the neighborhood, and I mean, I don't know how you impose. You know, you can impose standards that really don't carry out through the neighborhood. So that's kind of how I see it. And you know, it's pretty much in line with the other, you know, with the other structures up and down the street. So that's about all I have.
Okay. Ralph, you're next.
I'm for the variance. What I like is the steps are now going to the left, to the driveway versus coming out forward to the street, because that would actually drop down probably about another 8 feet. Would come out at probably about another 6-7 feet out from the end of the deck. Now it's only going to the left of the deck, which now is still on the property going out to the driveway, which I like better, a lot better from the design standpoint. So I'm all for the variance right now.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
No.
Jack, you're on mute.
You're muted.
I have no objections. I think the other gentleman stated it well. As Darcy said, it's just a mishmash. And Brian said that there's no real consistency. I don't see holding these guys hostage to a few feet here.
Okay, thank you. Byron?
I support the application.
Okay. I do as well. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Luann?
Mr. Havel?
Is that me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Horvath?
I agree.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Ms. Harlow?
Yes. Okay, we will, thank you, Mr. Schotterbeck, sorry. I'd already put the paper down, but your motion's been approved. And I'm sure you will get the necessary paperwork in the next couple of weeks.
Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time and help with it. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We are going to move on now to BZA case 2020-15. It is a conditional use request with the Symmes Library. Mr. Snyder?
Yes, and I will begin this case by showing the screen here. This is the library. I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. Inyart Road, Montgomery Road. The request as part of case Symmes 2020-15 is a conditional use request for a library use in an A district. Libraries are permitted to be located in residential zones, provided they are approved as part of a conditional use. This property has never gone through the conditional use review before. Schools, churches, and libraries at one point in time were considered all approved or permitted uses with no hearing processes in residential districts. That has changed both in the county and in Symmes Township over the years. And so all libraries, schools, and churches are considered pretty much the same with the same criteria as part of the conditional use chapter of the Symmes Township zoning code. The staff report includes all of those criteria. I am not going to go in depth into each one of those unless you have a question about one of the specifics. The request is fairly simple. There's a lot of places in the staff report that it mentions that the board, we suggest the board reserve the right to review things in the future. If this were a new library, we'd be talking about streetscape buffers along the street, the size of the sign, boundary buffers would technically be required along just this property line, actually, because this is also an institutional use here, but it is residentially zoned. So there could be some discussion about buffers between the school and the library. Parking space dimensions, parking lot dimensions, we don't have any of that. But they're not proposing any changes to any of that, so we're not getting into that with the staff report specifically. Although if they redid this parking lot or added parking, then obviously the discussion about interior parking lot landscaping, things like that would come up in the future. This, however, is a pretty simple request. They've got a drive-through lane here where you come in. I guess this is kind of considered like a roundabout. You drive around it and get into the parking lot. You currently come drive through here and drop books off into a book drop box. I think they have two right next to each other that are uncovered, and they're just boxes. You open them up, put the books in, and then close them. What the library is proposing to do now is add a book drive-through window where you'd be able to talk to somebody inside the library and so request things, drop things off, or have them bring things and give them to you so that you can drive away. I believe they're proposing this somewhat related to the COVID issue where people aren't wanting to come into the library, but there is already a drive-through lane. So they're not making any changes to the actual parking lot as part of this proposal. All they're proposing to do is put a hole in the side of the existing building in the existing drive-through lane. And then they are proposing to put canopies over both the new drive-through window and the existing book drop boxes that would be extending out from the building just a couple of feet to cover the windows of cars that are using either the drop box or the drive-through window. So there's some pictures. And just before we go on, the main point of the staff report is to review the impact of this possible drive-through window on these condominiums, as they're the closest residential units. This is a commercial buildings and retail. This is all a commercial area. Across the street, I don't think we'll really have any impact on these properties here. Obviously not the office or the school. So it's really these condominiums here, the first couple of condominiums. And so we looked at, and the pictures show, what the landscaping looks like in between these things as part of our review. So starting at the bottom, this would be standing in this condominium, basically right here in front of this condominium. You can see it off to the right here. This is the existing landscaping that's in the condominium, the Symmes Landing condominium project, and then you can see the landscaping right along the property line between the existing library and the driveway to the condominium development. It's pretty substantial kind of boundary buffering that they have separating their driveway from the library. Looking from their driveway a little further up, when you're not adjacent to the condos don't start until you get past this corner here. So this is right behind this photo is the retail development. So we still have a substantial number of trees and bushes along this property line. And you can also see these pine trees that are here. These are actually in an island between the drive-through lane and the parking lot. So this would be between the drive-through window location. This is where they're proposing to put the drive-through window. And I believe the drop boxes that currently exist are somewhere here. So there'd be a new awning here, and a new window here. And so that would be right next to this existing landscaping that they have in an island in the parking lot. And then this is just what it looks like as you go back. So from Enniert Road looking in the driveway, this is the driveway to Symmes Landing, and this is the screening that we were looking at earlier. The condominiums are in the back, and the drive-through would be on the side, or is on the side currently. So looking at the staff report, there are general criteria and specific criteria. As I said, what we looked at primarily was the adverse effect or potential adverse effect of the drive-through window on the adjacent homeowners. And what we found was the condominium, the closest condominium property is 270 feet away. So from this garage to this window location is 270 feet. And between there's the landscaping and fencing at the edge of this corner here. There's the landscaping that's in the middle of this area here that I showed, and then all the landscaping on the property line and the landscaping in the island. When we start talking about the condominiums here, we add in this landscaping that's inside the project too, as it kind of helps screen this. And then there's also landscaping along their property line still, and in the rear yards of these condominiums. The potential for impact of this on those properties is very slim. There's already a drive-through here. You're not adding any vehicle noise or location. They're already opening up a drop box and closing it. They're already probably hearing that. Any loudspeaker that would be used kind of like at a bank, those generally aren't extremely loud, and the library hours of operation are very limited, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I don't think that there would be much of an impact from even the drive-through window if they do have a kind of a speaker system on any of these condominiums here, based on the distance, the number, the existence of all the landscaping, and the limited hours of operation. And that's kind of what we found in the staff report. Like I said, there are several other sections that are specific to size of signs, vehicular use areas, access to a collector street, that we didn't get into it as part of this project, because this is very limited in scope. And so generally, the only criteria that was really reviewed was the second general criteria, which is no adverse effect. And I stated the findings from the staff report for that. So unless you have any questions, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Brian. Does anyone have questions for Brian right this minute?
I do not.
Nope.
Okay. Then we're going to move ahead. And if you are here to speak for this appeal, please unmute yourself, state your name, and the firm that you were sworn in.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Jeffrey Sackenheim, raising my right hand that I'm sworn in. I'm an architect with SHP, and my team put the drawings together that were submitted for the application. I don't know that I really have anything additional to add. I think that was a very good summary. I will just clarify, because I don't think it was said, that both of the little canopies will be just mounted directly to the building, so they'll just project off of the building. They don't have any columns or anything that come down to the ground. And I'd be happy to answer.
Are there plans to put in a speaker?
The window unit does come with it, a little integral speaker and microphone, very similar to like what you would find at a bank drive-through or a pharmacy drive-through, yes.
Does anyone on the board have questions for Mr. Sackenheim?
Yes. Have they figured out, or have they calculated any traffic through the drive-through?
Relative to what's projected?
Yes.
If there would be any increase. They don't have any hard numbers. I don't, from our last conversation, we just talked about traffic flow. They're sort of offering this as a hybrid service now, where you can call ahead and walk up to the front door. I don't think they've noticed a tremendous increase in traffic. So I can't definitively answer that, but I don't think they expect a huge uptick in the number of cars per day.
Yeah, where my problem was the last time I was there was dropping off books, and there were 3 big SUVs, those Escalades. And by the time I was there, I was already in the parking lot. That's how big those things are. So that's what I was looking at, because I'm afraid there may be, and I like the idea of the drive-through, that there may be enough people, or people stopping there because they're talking to somebody at the teller, that there's no real big queuing line of some sort. And that's what I was concerned about.
Sure, I can tell you that at a conceptual level, we've had that conversation. I believe this branch is part of the library's overall facility master plan for some additional improvements at some point down the road. I think addressing that site issue would fall into that later scope of work, but it has nothing to do with what we're doing here today. But I agree with your concern about lack of queuing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to assume you've done all the homework, but what kind of vehicles are going to be obstructed by the canopies?
Anything over 10 foot 6 inches tall. So a delivery vehicle of
So
some
they're
sort. Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 10 feet.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Sackenheim at this point? Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak on behalf of this appeal or against this appeal? Okay, I hear no one speaking up or jumping in. So we'll close this for discussion among the board. Jack, I'm gonna just pick on you first. Do you have any
That'll be
issues with this?
fine. I have no objections. I support the appeal.
Okay. Thank you. Ralph?
I support the appeal. I don't think it's a hindrance to anybody, really. The only hindrance it will be is if cars do back up into that parking area. But that they'll probably have to deal with in some format at this point. But I do like the idea, and I'm for it.
Okay. Byron?
Fully supportive.
Okay. And Darcy?
I have nothing more to add. I think everything's been said.
Okay. I'm also for this. Brian, we'd like to make a motion to approve this request. How do we do that and preserve the conditional use for the board to revisit parking lot issues and buffering issues and all of that down the road?
I would just say, whoever makes the motion to say per the findings in the staff report. It's kind of the reason that I put them in the staff report, so that the board can point to them in the future and say we reserve the right.
Okay. Thank you. I move to approve BZA Appeal 2020-14 per the staff report.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Or I'll third it.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
What was that, Louis?
Who seconded the motion?
Jack and I both said it at the same time. So.
Okay.
I had the others. Give him this one.
Okay.
Spread the blame around, right?
Right.
Ready? Ms. Harlow?
Yes.
Mr. Havel?
Yes.
Mr. Horvath?
Agreed.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Sackenheim, the appeal is approved. Go forth. I'll be one of the annoying people with the Escalade. I hope the canopy still works over that. So.
As long as you're not jacked up like 6 inches, should be okay.
No, I have too many kids. I can't afford the fancy rooms.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Luann, do we have any old business?
Well, I gotta ask Brian, that Stonewood construction sign, they still haven't sent the revised plans. The resolution is just sitting on my desk.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't want to put the sign up, he doesn't have to. He spent time and money to go through the variance process, but we can't make him build it.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's all I got for old business.
New business? Oh, go ahead.
All I know is we do have a case for February.
Yeah.
Oh, and what happened to the stone fireplace in the front yard situation?
That's going to court, but I don't know the status of it. Do you know, Brian?
Me either. No, I haven't heard anything since it went to court.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Does
a record
anybody
hearing,
notice?
so once the township provides all the record documents, they don't call new witnesses. They don't depose anybody. It's not like they're suing. They're appealing a decision of yours, and because it's a record hearing, none of us will typically be involved. I mean, I usually don't hear of these things until the actual decision is made.
Has anyone else noticed about the Harper's Point Kroger sign that they've never executed on the variance?
I noticed that.
Yep,
Yeah.
I noticed that too. Brian, on Kemper, not on Snyder, that one building right next to Five Seasons, not a building, where he was going to build an office building, which now may become homes. I'm not sure. There's still a lot of junk there. He's still using it as a storage area.
Yeah. Okay. I'll talk to the zoning inspector about that. They're not allowed to store construction equipment on a property unless it's under construction, and I'm pretty sure they don't have a building permit for anything on that property.
Right. He has snow plows and he has salt stacked up there and everything. So.
Okay. I'll talk to our zoning inspector.
Okay.
Okay. Administrative matters. Can we approve the minutes from November 2nd of 2020? Yes. I move that we approve
You said
them.
November?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll say, I'll move that we approve it.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Fowler,
Yes.
Ms. Harlow,
Yes.
Mr. Havel,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
The other thing is, I guess we can continue to do Zoom meetings until July.
Okay.
So is that what you guys want to do? We're going to just keep doing this?
I'm all for it.
I would prefer it because I'm headed to Florida for 3 months, so that'd be a
Okay.
good way to keep me involved.
Okay.
I thought you were there.
Well, I was, but I got a little bit of the flu, and my doctor made me get a COVID test, and then he put me under quarantine, until I get the results. And the results are like 3 to 10 days. And so how long is the quarantine? 10 days. I'm like,
I'll tell you.
even get the freaking test?
Well, if you're going to get a COVID test, the best place to go is tell your doctor you want to go to Children's Hospital, right by us in Deerfield.
You're right. And I argued with the people about the test results being 7 to 10 days. And they said, well, if you want to get them done sooner, go to children's.
It took not even 24 hours and I got my result.
I should have done that. But anyways. No,
and I ended up getting it.
Did you really?
Yeah. And I'm self-quarantined, sort of. So, I haven't really left the house except to go to Kroger's. And we can't figure out how we got it. Then my wife got it, and my son had gotten it right after Thanksgiving. So, thank God it was mild.
Yeah, the mild case that I've got is very reminiscent of the flu that I had last January. You know what I mean? So,
I had a real bad head cold.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just like a bad head cold. That's all it is. But I wanted to see the doctor to say, hey, maybe get me a Z-Pack or something to help with busting it up. And it's no, you got to come in and get a COVID test. And So as soon as the 10 days are up, which is next Monday, I'm in the car and we're headed south.
And my wife's big thing when she had it was she ended up she had fever for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then she went into a brain fog type of thing.
Yeah.
That she just wasn't, she was thinking right, but everything was cloudy, I guess.
Yeah.
And that went on for about 2 weeks.
Wow. Well, what I can tell you is that getting COVID is not a death sentence. You know, it's not like Ebola. You will recover.
Yeah, but some people can, some people can't.
Well, yeah, people that have comorbidities, I really feel sorry for. I really do, because it's a heck of a thing to trip the trigger. But
Yeah.
We have some people in Camp Dennison that have gotten it. They're health professionals, doctors, and one's a pharmacist. And for it's going 4 months. They still have no taste or smell.
Yeah,
Kind of driving them nuts.
Wow.
Well, I didn't have taste, and that was a great thing because I lost 6 pounds. but now it's come back and I've gained 3. So
You're almost back to normal.
Yeah. But that's the last thing that comes back. They say is taste and smell. So everybody needs to stay healthy.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, Jack, if you go to Florida, you can get your shot.
I'm not so sure I want one right now. I'm going to wait a while. I want to see.
Well, you got to wait. You have to wait, I think, 30 days.
Yeah, but I'm kind of waiting to see. I want to go about 6 months and see how all these other people that are getting it, how they're doing before I decide to give myself a shot. I'm not real keen on that. So I'll try and stay healthy. And well, if I end up having the COVID this time, at least I've got the antibodies for a while. So
yeah, you should have it for 90 days, they say, at least. So, well, the best shot will be 3 fingers of Jack Daniels. So.
And it would.
We have a meeting in February.
We have a meeting in February.
We do have something February.
Yes. I don't know what it is, Brian. I didn't.
remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
No, I haven't gotten into that yet. I don't generally open that stuff up until
Yeah, I know.
this one is done.
But we do have a case for February, at least one.
At least one,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. We'll look forward to it.
Yes.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it. That's all I got.
Have a great evening.
You too.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.